This is a 2006 Honda Civic Si. I'm starting work on replacing the clutch. I've got Exedy stage 1 clutch and a new flywheel from Look. To start, I'm going to remove the battery hold on with the long 10mm. Just pop it in and then spin it off. That's sufficient. Should be able to get the hook out. Now that the hold down is out, you can get the positive at 12mm off. Push it away. And then the negative, which is smaller, 10mm, should be sufficient. It's done. Get the cover off and keep it organized. And then you can simply lift the battery out. Okay, let's take the mass fluorescent stuff. Press the clip and gently pull it off. That's off. And then disconnect the hose from this side. I'm going to take the airbox out. 4 clips. And actually 6 clips. 2 on this side, 2 on this side, and then 2 on the back. Filter looks reasonably good. To get the airbox out, there are like 10mm. There's the bolt, there's a nut here, there's the bolt, and I think that's it. It was pretty difficult to dislodge this. I was able to pull it off from the other side. So now the box should come off. And there's a retainer for this bolt. And then that nut, I kept it separate. So we have the box out, and these hoses are pretty stuck on. You're able to get it off. For documentation, this is the orientation, and the coolant hose hooks up here. And then for this is the clamp. It goes here, and then it goes over like so. I'm going to keep it there. And then on the other side, here's the one that hooks up to that. So now getting the clutch slave cylinder bracket off. It's a 10mm. They just broke off those retaining clips, so I may have to order new ones. And then lift this one off. And there we go. And keep track of this. The clutch linkage bracket is a 12mm. There's 3 bolts. Let's take a closer look at the clips. There's one on this side, just came off there, and then there is one on this side. Got both the clips off, so now I can take this whole unit. There's a harness going attached to that, and also this bracket needs to come. This is connected to the transmission. I think 3 12mm. While I'm here, I'm gonna put these bolts back so that I have to keep track of them. I'm gonna just spin them all the way down. All this is disconnected. Gotta get this off right here, and then the next step is to get these connectors off from the harness. There's one down here, and then one up here. That 12mm is a bolt it has this bracket the harness connected to. It was really difficult. So I had to use this with a swivel socket. This bolt is for the harness below there that connects to the transmission right there, and that's for this cover just came off. Gotta make sure this is in place after everything goes. This connector was jammed in, so I used a pick to push it and then gently pry on the bottom with the flat head, and finally came off. So that's one, and then the other one that goes here is right there. So almost all the harness is clear. As the harness bracket bolt is removed, got the 10mm the harness bracket bolt off, and I'm gonna put the screw back in here, the bolt, and removed all the bolts, all the airbags right here. Loosen the 12mm bolt and this slave cylinder bracket right here. Spin them off, and that one. Got to remove one more sensor right here. Just pinch and pull. It's off, and I had to get this the clip off. I can clip this off. The whole harness can come up, and I think I'm gonna remove this the connector, so that way I can hold this up and down. Getting this bracket out, just make it easy to go for the bell housing bolts on the top. Next, I'm going to remove the grounding strap right here. Step, I'm going to loosen the bell housing bolts. They're 17mm. It's kind of hard to see. Let's see if I can show where exactly it is. Let's take a look inside. That one on the right, that's a 17mm. There is one on this side, somewhere underneath all these hoses right there. Actually, I have the socket on it right here. That is loosened there. First bell housing bolt, it's a 17mm. You can take a look right here. Just gonna loosen this plastic shield off right below the subframe in the front, and these are the pins. Took the tire off. It has a wheel lock, so I'd use that special key, and then the axle bolt out on both sides. Let's take a look at the other side. Raise the quick jack to the maximum height. And now I'm on a creeper, plenty of space. I'm going to start removing the tie rod and the control arm. This one bolt here, and then two nuts, and then on the tie rod there is a cotter pin and the nut on the top. Straighten the cotter pin. Finally, almost out the cotter pin. There, still in the nut, and I have a 1/2-inch drive attached to it with a swivel, and here we go. Okay, awesome. So that's off. It's off. I'll hit the side with the hammer. Heavy. release it. Just heavy smack on this side, sufficient to slide it. So it's out. I have the net removed from the passenger side tie rod as well. I would suggest using a Ziploc bag to mark everything. So I learned from my previous attempt on a different car. So this time every little thing, you know, this is a 19mm tie rod nut for driver and passenger side. This makes it very easy when it goes back together. There you go. So it's off now. And to disconnecting the ball joint, the lower control, it's a 17mm. Straightforward, it's easy. It's 17mm as well. And the last one. There we go. The passenger side. Closer. This side is to disconnect the control arm. Take a pry bar and then use the axle as a support, and then gently push it down until it disconnects, like so. So now we are fully disconnected and should be able to pop the axle out of the transmission. And this is the driver's side rotor, and that's the axle. And as we come, take a look at the connection of the axle to the transmission. Just use a pry bar to go behind it, like so. I don't know if it is supposed to pop it out. You can see it's out of the transmission. Get the pry bar out, and a little bit more light. Now it's you can see that shiny part. It's popped out of the transmission. No oil because I already drained the transmission oil. There we go. Axle seems to be in a pretty decent shape. Don't need to worry about that. Next time I'm gonna disconnect this exhaust hanger off with the pry bar. I think there's a tool, but I think this works too. So let's take it off. Closer look at the second bolt for the dash shield that's connected to the center bearing for the passenger side axle. Second bolt is off. I think they both are the same size. Let's take a look at the one I have. Yes, they both are the same size. Found out the dust shield has another bolt right behind it. You can see from here where the light is shining. That's another one. Before I can get it off, I think that's a 12mm too. So I'm gonna go get it now. I have to go for the third bolt that's holding the dust shield for the passenger side axle. There we go. This is what I used, and here's the third one holding the dust shield. Next step is to get this inspection cover off from behind the clutch. There's the flywheel. Seems to be in decent shape, but I'm gonna put a new one in. Flywheel inspection cover and the bolts. The bottom bolt for the starter is a 17mm. It is a long socket, and then a long extension to be able to get some, proper grip. Here is the front motor mount attached to the clutch and to the subframe, and here you can take it from the net side, and there is a tab. I don't know if it's visible. The light is there. There is a tab right here. Let me zoom in. No, it's gone too far. Right there. Right there. There is the tab right here. So it had to come from the bolt side. It's a 17mm. And I have And once we take that off, that disconnects the mount from the subframe, which we are going to see the ratchet seated right there. Here's the front motor mount to subframe bolt. I have 3 bolts for the motor mount that are loosened, and then I will take them off once the subframe is dropped. Here's the rear motor mount. It's a 19mm using a 1/2-inch drive. That's loose. I'm just gonna loosen it for now, and then later, once I'm ready to drop the subframe, I will disconnect them. So this is loose as well. So that's done. That's the 14mm for the center bearing. There's one, and then there's one right behind. For that, I gotta figure out a way that to come from this side or go from here. We'll see which one works. So this is the 14. Wow, that worked. Oops, I just dropped down. I was able to use a swivel with a long 14mm and then come from here in the back, and I was able to break it loose. See, it spins there. See, I'll just slowly spin it off. But putting it back should be easy. After getting those 3 bolts out, took me about 20 minutes. Able to just pull it. The bottom one was really difficult, but I think going back should be much easier. There you go. And on the passenger side, there is no snap or ring to catch inside the transmission because of this bearing that keeps it in place. Power steering tie rod is all disconnected. All I have to do is now disconnect some of those bolts that secure the power steering to the subframe, and then loosen the subframe bolt, support it from the bottom, and next thing, ready to drop. We have to remove this brace that is attached to the subframe and the power steering. There's a 17mm right here, and then a 14mm. The 17mm needs to be removed, and the 14mm just needs to be get the 17mm loosened up, and after that we can just swing it away, and that's enough. And there is one more similar to this one. It's a little different style on the other side. There's the driver's side subframe flat brace bolt. Here's 10mm bolt right here that disconnects this, so we can let it go with the power steering. That's the harness for the power steering. 10mm bolt for the center subframe harness retainer. Looking from the back of the car, this is the subframe, and there is a brace right here, 17mm. I have a socket on it, 17mm right there where my finger is touching, and then there is another one right here, that's a 14. So for this also, the 14 needs to be loosened, and then the 17 needs to be taken. Here we go, the bolt is off. Okay, there, and then this can be swung away. I moved it away from the hoses, and then here is the bolt for subframe center slanted brace. There you go. This is the last brace to be removed that holds down the power steering rack to the subframe. That's a 14mm. If it's visible on the camera, that is the second bolt. I just removed the one from this side, and then there's the second one. The steering rack is loose, so before I drop, I need to secure them to the exhaust, and then it's actually heavy on close to where it goes into the driver's side. Now the subframe is ready to come down, so I'm going to start 2 bolts, 17 millimeter right here. One off. There's one on the other side. I can attach it to the top. Let's go to the passengers. See? So while putting back on the front, I think once we raise it, we can secure this one, and the other one should be sufficient to hold it till we can tighten the bolt. The subframe top mount. Here, there. 17 millimeter. There's the 4 remaining bolts. I'm gonna just loosen them up and then bring in a jack and then stands for the front support. Bring the car down a little bit. There. And moving on to the front ones, the front passenger side. Just enough. Move on to the driver's side rear. Okay, it's off. Just like that over there. Okay, remove the rear mount, the side bolt and the bottom bolt. And it's here. Rear motor mount bolts. Long one is for the side. The 4 subframe bottom bolts. They are 17 millimeter. Now the subframe bolts are out. Let's see how it comes down. So separation. Yeah. There we go. Just all right. The subframe is separated. I secured the tie rod here. The old rear motor mount with a tone wrapper, and here's a brand new one, original from Honda. And here's the part number. Here is the subframe, and I have the jack supporting the engine. Now I can work on the bolts around the clutch. Take the 14 millimeter bolt off. In preparation, removing the transmission mount. Then just pull up. There's a tab at the bottom. And then there's 1, 2, and 3 10 millimeter. This computer out. Okay. Push and push it back. Pinch this and gently pull these connectors out, and then you have this whole unit. Out. There's the computer bracket, and 2 14 millimeter, one there. There's a 10, and then 3 10s to secure the computer. So the bracket comes off like this. I'm not going to remove anything else. The transmission mount bolt, the bottom one, is a 17 millimeter. Yeah, really deep socket. So remove the 2 17 millimeter transmission mount bolts at the top, and then the short one from the wheel well, and finally found a deep socket 17. So it works. All the bolts now, bolts and nuts. Just remove the front motor mount, 3 bolts right here. Here's the transmission mount. I took the 17 millimeter bolts here, and then 2 nuts here, and still it's not moving, and then finally realized there is one 17 millimeter bolt right behind here where I have the sockets on the front of the car, and the oil pan, the transmission. Here's a 14 millimeter, and then there is another 14 millimeter with a couple of 17 on that side, and then we should be ready to get the transmission out. I'll close the rear one too. Once again, this socket has been very useful. Okay, remove the bottom 14 millimeter bolts from the engine to the bell housing. It's right here. Here's the next one. It says 17 millimeter right by the coolant hose. Let it loose. That's 17 millimeter bolt. Also kept it in the same from the bottom one, and the long one goes near the coolant pipe from the transmission to the engine. The top two bolts, transmission bell housing to the engine. This is 17 millimeter. And then the second one is almost out. Right here. Those are the top two. We have, I think, a couple of more on that side, and we are ready to get the bell housing, transmission bell housing, top two bolts, 17 millimeter. Here's the back from the engine to the transmission to 17 millimeters. Just remove the bolts. The transmission is already clearly separating, and then there are two bolts. One is long. The long one goes up top, and the short one, that's the white colored one, goes onto this. Here's the transmission mount. All right, something like this. And this was the one that I didn't realize was right on the back. So now it's all free, ready to come out. Here's the pry bar from the top over there, from the front right over there, and then it just came off, and I think it's resting on the transmission jack now. The transmission is almost done. It's got here with the power steering rack. Just need to push it out a little bit, and that's how it looks right there. Let's take a look at the transmission. Here we go. And I'm trying, this rod bearing is kind of like not moving freely. It's also not making noise. We're gonna clean this, and there is the, I can smell the burnt clutch. I'm getting this cleaned. Okay, now it's time to remove the pressure plates bolts. It's a 10 millimeter ball point. Okay, here's the last one. It's off. There, that's the, oh, look at that, it's completely shredded. Has no material left. I feel it's kind of like smooth. And there we go, there's the flywheel. This is about 13 years, I think 16 years old, 2006. So I'm gonna change that too. And to the next, the original clutch disc and the pressure plate. This is 16 years old, and here's the new Exedy Stage 1 OEM and the new pressure plate. So last one. flywheel is off. Here's the old flywheel. This is the Honda original, and this is the German one lock. Making sure look like putting the new one in. I have a pig mat down here to catch the trip. Now it's all clean, ready for the new flywheel to go. So here's the new flywheel in. I'm gonna just run them down, and then so I have the torque wrench set to 90 foot-pounds, and have a flywheel turner holder, and I've set all these 8 bolts, 17mm bolts, to 90 foot-pounds. The clutch disc is in with the alignment tool. It's just hanging in there, and then the pressure plate is gonna go. All the bolts are in. I'm gonna hand tighten them snug. So 10mm 12 point. Torquing to spec 19 foot-pounds. The pressure plate install is complete. Been torqued to 19 foot-pounds. We are ready to clean the transmission and grease the spines. This is how the transmission bell housing looks after cleaning with the brake clean. I have cleaned up the clutch fork and lubed the splines, cleaned everything. Now it is so smooth the movement. Transmission is about to be mated. Need to make a few more adjustments. Maybe I'll use the engine support bar to lift it here and then be able to adjust it. Finally got the transmission mated. I had to turn the crank a few times just so the splines from the transmission go into the clutch disc. So now once that is, I use this engine support bar to lift on 2 points, able to maneuver it. It's pretty tough, and this is the toughest part of all. Even the subframe is not that difficult. Just need 2 jacks to be able to put them back. But this took me a while. I had asked my neighbor to come and help me out. Now that's done, I can torque them to spec, put the transmission mount, and then I don't have to worry about supporting the engine from the bottom. So the look from the front, that's the oil pan, that's the transmission, 2 14mm bolts, and 17mm up top. They're 14, and here's the starter bolt that needs to go in. So 17, and then 17s and 14s up there, and the transmission is ready to be torqued to 47 foot. Here's the front motor mount, 3 17mm bolts, 2 on the top, 1 on the bottom. Finally got the transmission mount in. I had to lower the engine for it to drop down, so be aware of that. Need to get the engine a little low so we can drop it on, and we have to put 1 2 3 2 nuts here, 2 bolts here, and then there is 1 on the back. All the nuts and bolts are in. Gotta tighten and torque spec, and this is the short one that goes on the bottom. I had to use a box sand to tighten it, and this can use a torque wrench here, so just make sure it's tight enough. The transmission install is complete. The transmission mount is back in place. I have the front motor mount bracket in, and now I'm going to do the axles both and then secure them, then bring up the subframe that's sitting over there. Okay, time to put the driver's side axle. This is the short one with the subclip side facing towards the transmission. Just lift. I'm gonna just push this away. And should there. Just I was just able to use the axle itself to push, and I think it's almost in. Then on the other side, just have, okay, make sure that's a take a look. It's in, and we can verify if the axle is all the way in. Let's take a look, which is not, so we need to do a little tap to get it to go in. Tapped it in, looks like it's all the way in. There. So done, and I'm gonna do the passenger side now. It's gonna be much easier without the subframe in place. So I'm gonna complete install on the passenger side, and then go on to getting the subframe up. Here we go. Just moves like this. There. So time to get the passenger side axle. Take a closer look. Finally got it in. First time when I did, the bracket wasn't the right orientation. Then I couldn't flip it, so I had to pull it out and make sure the bracket is in the right orientation before moving it in. If you have a hard time, just wiggle it around, twist it from the caliper side or the rotor side, and then it should go in. So now it's in. I have the axle in. I haven't tightened the bolts yet, and then just loosely have the axle nut in. And the next step is to get the center bearing bracket done, torque the bolts, and then I can move on to the sub. Took me nearly 20 minutes. It's back in. I'm spinning it down. Took me about 30 seconds to place it. Axle, passenger side axle dust seal covers been installed. It's not a 14 millimeter, it's actually a 12. So got them all tightened. So we're good to go here. Now let's take a look at the subframe. I have it sitting on two jacks, two 3-ton jacks, and just about ready. I'm gonna raise them evenly and then secure the four main bolts to the frame. I raised and started the first one on the front left, and then here's the second one for here, and then the rear. It's surprisingly easy compared to what I had to go through when I brought it down. New rear motor mount in. Take a look. I'm going to put a bolt at the bottom to the subframe, and then connect the other side to the oil pan. There's the motor mount frame or bracket, and then also hook up the exhaust hanger right here, right there. That needs to be hooked up, and then it's the bolts have been started here, and then I need to torque them to specs. Frame install is complete. Pretty much down with the bottom. The tie rod is in, cotter pin installed, and the control arm back in there, and all the bolts. The upper two bolts were, I think, for the control for the subframe is like 43 pounds pound-foot, and then the lower ones are like 76. They're all done, both sides. Let's take a look at the other side. Here, all done. I have the pump pressure around 10 psi. And let's take a look here. And this is how it goes. This adapter, just hook it in. Now I have to do is open and wait for it to drain. So now it's filling up. Once it starts draining, I can stop. Okay, starting to drip. Yeah, right there. You can see. Release the pressure. And we are good. Yep, it's all done. All done. Torqued it. Applied some anti-seize to the fill plug. Make sure I need to take it out the next time around. Before mounting the slave cylinder to the throat bearing fork, I'm going to apply some anti-seize to the ball on both sides to prevent squeaks. And then mount the slave cylinder right there. It's a 12 millimeter bolt. Okay. Next up is the slave cylinder bracket, the line bracket, and then the ground cable, very important. I'll finish that up next. Next up is the computer bracket. Goes on like this. So it's right there. And this footing. One. And then the second one down here. Computer brackets in. Now I'm looking at the computer, these cables. It slips on, and then you pull this tab back up to lock it in place. The computer is held by three 10 millimeter for the bracket. I'm gonna attach this harness, goes behind this, and then fortunately I left the bolt right there. It's a 10 millimeter. Next up is the clutch cable bracket. It's a long bolt. They are 12 millimeters, and the short ones go on the bottom. Three of them. Now the clutch links. Slide them on, and then the plastic washer on top. One for each side. There, and then the plate. There, and then I need the cotter pin. It seems to be a little big, but I guess should be okay. The air box. There is one bolt right there. It's hard to see now. Right there, in between, right there, and then the second one up top, and then the last one goes up here. Box is in, the hose is hooked up. Make sure all of the connections are there. I have to put the filter, engine filter. There. Okay. And then once I put this assembly, hook it up, and then the final connection is the battery. The airbox install is almost complete. The last clip, and then the mass airflow sensor connector. Sure you hear the click sound, and checking everything's in place. The tray goes at the bottom, and then the battery sits on top of it. Other cover goes on like this, and then next is to secure the battery. Time to secure the battery. Here's the hook. Yep. Tight enough. Battery is secure now. sounds pretty good.